Dear members, welcome to our webinar that is titled Pension and Personal Finance. Our speaker today is none other than Dr. Edward Odundo, a very familiar name to all of us. Begin by introducing Dr. Edward Odundo, and then he'll go ahead and give us his talk. After that, we'll have a Q&A session, and then we'll have closing remarks by our chairman, plus the CEO. And then we will ask you to fill a survey at the end of the talk. This webinar attracts CPD points. This will be sent to the emails you'll have provided as you are registering. So you'll have at least 3 points to boost your CPD points as a requirement of the medical. Dr. Odundo I want to introduce him now. He's a director of the School of Pension Studies. He's also a chairman of Public Service Superannuation Scheme, a director of at Equity Holding Group, and a lecturer at UN School of Business. He also happens to be a consultant in pension, tax, corporate governance, and financial services. He was formerly a CEO of Retirement Benefits Authority. He has been commissioner of VAT at KRA. He has been a key speaker at major organizations like the Organization of Cooperation and Development, World Bank, and African Development Bank. He's also an author of several books, one of which is The Doctrine of Strategic Planning and The Doctrine of Entrepreneurship, which has come in 3 volumes. One, New Venture Creations, Creativity and Innovation Technology, and Legacy and Exit Strategy. So I'm very happy to present to you Dr. Odundo. And Dr. Odundo, you can go ahead and talk to the doctors who are members of KMA SACCO. This SACCO has a membership of pharmacists, dentists, and medical doctors, plus their spouses and children above 18. So basically, it's a diverse audience. Age range could be about 25 for the very young ones who have just graduated and joined the internship, up to about 70, 80, those who are on their retirement. So it's a very diverse group you're going to talk to. I welcome you to talk to the doctors, Dr. Odundo.
Thank you, Chair. And the time, yes, for your program, at what point do we start Q&A?
Well, the webinar should run up to about 8:30. So okay. Depending on the length of your presentation,
yes,
we'll have time.
Yeah, thank you. That will give me time to, if there is any editor.
I'm reminded that we have non-members in the group, so your audience is actually wider.
Oh, that's even better. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I'll now get started. I'll be sharing my screen. And as you've been told, my name is Dr. Odundo. I've already been introduced, and sort of give a nice breaking story, basically session, just to tell you what this is all about. One thing I would like to say is that I was the former regulator at Retirement Benefits Authority for close to 16 years. I set up the institution, and then I retired in 2017. Effectively, I've been in retirement for now more than almost 4 years, because now I'm 64, going to 65. What I'd like to also say is that, so I'm going to give you my perspective as a regulator and also my perspective as a retiree. To start, I would say that not everything that I used to put policies I used to put in place really work for the retirees. Some of them really don't work until you reach there. That's when you realize that things have to be changed. But before you get there, you might not know. But I would say some policies that maybe I even put myself there are not really very good for retirees. The advantage I have also, I'm currently chairing the Public Service Superannuation Scheme, which is 400,000 membership. This is a new contributory scheme of the government. They decided that I chair it and it's getting started. We have been in operation for only 1 year. And in that 1 year, I came up with a policy of cash preservation and capital accumulation. We are not investing in any other investment vehicle except government securities, because currently that's the best investment. But the idea was to have cash, because I believe all of you know that public servants have been having a very difficult time when they retire. You are told there is no cash. So one thing that I made sure is that anyone, at least there's money, any one time, even if we have to solve the scheme, there'll be money to pay off. In that 1 year that we have been in operation, we've accumulated 25 billion, because I received close to 3 billion a month. Effectively, this will be the largest scheme in the country. In the next few years, we shall be close to over 300 billion. So therefore, this scheme needs to be run well, and cash has to be preserved, and we must make sure that it's got very good governance. For the next 3 years, I'm there, but after that, I also hope that whoever takes over will ensure that this scheme has funds. They've been contributing 2.5, and this year they're contributing 5%. Next year, the employees are started contributing 7.5, but the government has been contributing 15% from inception. That means that the contribution will be about 22.5. It is for employees around 45 years and below, but those who are above 45 can join voluntarily. So the ones below 45 have to join because it's compulsory, but the ones above 45 are free to join. And I've noticed quite a number have joined. At least that's just information which might be good for those who are either members of that scheme or just to be updated that this scheme has taken off. And this scheme also has embedded what we call post-retirement medical cover for all civil servants. So that is something that I'll be talking about as I go along. One thing that I always tell the people that I'm training, that I'm 64, and I believe I can't double my years, because that would be like 100 and something else, something 26 or something, 27. So where we're going is nearer than where we came from. So effectively, it's good to know that it's good to plan going forward. And what I would like to tell the membership and participants that if you ask me what's the most important things in retirement, I will tell you that pension is not the most important. And I'll give the 5 what I call mantras, which I think are the most important, but you can always add anything else. And I believe you are also taking notes. The first and the most important thing in retirement that I found out was, or that I know, is medical. As a regulator, I was internationally the president worldwide, and I saw that medical was all over the world embedded in pension. And I realized that even in Kenya, that's why I came up with that particular policy and regulation that pension schemes must embed medical cover within their pension scheme, so that helps somebody when you retire. So the first and the most important thing I'll tell you is medical cover. I personally, because I had that information, therefore I'll be giving you my story. I took post-retirement medical cover, which I'm going to show you how it works. And why I did it is I had a friend of mine also who had, he's got good vehicles and everything, but when he was sick, friends were finding it very difficult to raise 500,000 for his operation. The young man passed on. Interestingly, when he passed on, we raised 3 million. So I was asking myself, how come we can't raise 500? And when somebody passes on, you can be able to raise 3 million. And when I was addressing judges and in Mombasa, I realized they even have a worse situation because they work for much longer. And when they go out, they find themselves on their own, and I'll talk about it much later. So this becomes something which is very important. First, medical cover. And personally, I also got COVID. I was admitted at Karen, and my pension scheme, my medical cover actually paid for it. This cover the institutions which have set it up currently in the country are only 4. I think there are almost 5 now, what we call post-retirement medical cover. So there is APA, there is Jubilee, there is Sanlam, and UAP. Maybe I just repeat. The few institutions who have it are the APA. APA was the first one, and that's why I took mine. Then there's UAP, came after that. There's Jubilee, there's Sanlam, and I was told the others were CIC also, I think, have also joined. I think most of them have.
Could you share your screen? Sorry, let me interrupt, Doctor. Could you share your screen? We are not seeing.
Oh, you can, okay, let me. put it,
Maybe just stop sharing and then reshare.
Can you see my screen?
Frozen.
You can see my screen. Can you not see my screen?
Reshare. It's blank. You can stop and then reshare.
Okay, let me see. If I can share it again.
Yes.
It is showing I'm sharing. Let me stop it. Then I share it afresh. Can you see my screen with the logo?
Yes. Yes, now it can be seen.
Okay, you can see it. That's very good.
Yes.
If you can see it, let me take you to where this note will be available. So, but I have to take you where I want to put for you. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
It has disappeared.
Now can you see it?
No, it has disappeared.
It has disappeared again.
Mm.
Let's see. Okay, let me change to data. Oh, I can see. Connecting.
Hi, Sama. How are you? Fine. I'm still in a meeting, but I'm in Ukunda. But it's those virtual meetings. Yeah. Yeah. So this document, I've seen this DocuSign. Is this a must? Because I normally just have my signature, which I paste and then I PDF.
Kasige, you can mute. Dr. Sige.
Oh. Because
Are we on now?
No, the screen is not visible.
But, can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you, but not your
Okay.
screen.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk and then I'll see whether I can share, but I can still go on. But I'd like you to take notes. These notes will be available, but the screen I'll be trying to put it again. So what I was saying is that they currently these ones which I'm taking you through, these ones are not going to be on the screen. What I'm going to show you on the screen will be the table that medical cover is most important, and I believe, and I like my student taking notes, by the way, because when you're given notes you don't read, it's good to take notes. Currently, we have 4 insurance companies, that's APA, UAP, and Jubilee. These are the ones who have a post-retirement medical cover. Let me try and share the screen now, see whether you can get it. Are you able to see that one? Can you
just
see
continue? This? No, it's not. Just continue.
Okay. Yes. This cover, basically there are 3. We have bronze, we have silver and gold, and then platinum. The platinum, which I took, is inpatient, it's 5 million. The gold is 3 million, while the silver is 1 million, and then the bronze is 500,000. Outpatients for the platinum is 200,000, and the gold is 150. And then silver is 100,000, and then we have 60. This is just a standard which can show, this will apply to most of these insurance companies. The cover that I took was a lifetime cover. You pay once, and it covers you for life. That's the main difference between this and the normal medical cover. And if you pay it at the time, like now when I retired, I was paid my gratuity. The first thing that I did was to pay for my medical cover, which covers me and my spouse. And it was 2.5 million, but you can always take something different and maybe silver. You don't have to pay the 2.5. But that 2.5 is covering me at 5 million per year, me and my spouse, and 200,000 medical every year. I mean, every year, 200,000. So this is quite something that, especially for younger, I would say your members who are younger, they can take it early. It matures only after retirement, meaning that if you take it at the age of 20 or 30, let's say 30, you'll find that if you take platinum, for instance, you'll be paying 3,346 per month for the next 40 years. Or if you take silver, you'll pay 1,974 per month for the next 40 years. Once you reach the age 40, you stop paying, and then you are covered for life. But if you decide to pull out before that time, then they'll just work out what you have been putting in and the interest, and then they refund you your money. But once you take the cover, once you reach retirement, then it matures, then it means from that day, you are covered throughout. So like, and I took mine, basically covered from the day that, from July, the time when I joined. And right now, it's this card applies, and I'll show you the card, for instance. Let's see whether this card can be seen now. I'm trying to see whether you can share. The card is there, but the card just shows the date of joining, which is 8th of July 2020, but then there is no 2017, and then there is no end date, okay? Because from 2017 when I joined. So you find that you are covered throughout the period. So this cover is something I advise that people should have it, because immediately you retire, one thing you realize that you are no longer the same person. And there's quite a bit which will affect you in terms of your medical cover or medical maintenance. And therefore I say that the first and the most important thing that anybody must have is a medical cover. I'll be sharing this table with Consolata, so you can always look at it at your own time, because sharing is not working here. So just trying to expand that, that's fine. So the second thing that I always tell people that I train, what is important is liquidity, cash. Cash is quite important in retirement, because you realize that for a long time you've been used to getting a salary, but immediately you stop working. If you're employed, then it means that that cash disappears. And then that is where now pension comes in. But one thing that I would like to tell you is that pension is only 10% of what you have accrued. Let's say if you have accrued maybe 10 million, you only get 10% of that, which is a very small amount. Because if it's 10 or 12 million, we'll give you less than 100,000 per month. So most Kenyans, they find they've accrued something like 6 million, 7 million, meaning that they're getting 70,000. So it means that if you retire, what you'll be getting at retirement is less than maybe 10% of your salary. If you're earning for 500,000 and you find that you've accumulated something like, let's say 12 million, then you're going to get 100,000, which again is subject to tax. So imagine if you are used to 500, then all of a sudden that one disappears. So you go back to 100,000. It becomes a big challenge. So pension alone is not enough. I'll be talking about that, but it's important to have it because it also helps in certain ways, which I'll also talk about. But that is where we have pension coming in. And you can either take an annuity or you can take a drawdown. An annuity is where you are paid every month for the rest of your life. I took an annuity, but you're free to take a drawdown. A drawdown is where they work out on a yearly basis how much is the balance that you've accumulated. And then it's divided over the period you think you're going to live. So that if you say you're going to live for another 20 years, then it's spread over 20 years and you recover. But what I noticed with this one, anytime somebody goes broke, they tend to ask for more. But an annuity is good because once you already put it in there, it's one-off. Okay. But the good thing about the pension is you find that if, let's say, something happens to you within the period, because one I took is guaranteed for 10 years, meaning that within the next 10 years, you find that anything happens, both me and my wife, they'll work out how much I've put in, how much is spent, and then the difference they'll pay to you. Okay. That's a good thing about it. So it's very important that you are able to get a scheme which will help you when it comes to this kind of a situation. So it's guaranteed for 10 years for both me and my wife. So that's when you are going for this thing, please insist that you want an annuity which is for both of you. And the good thing about it, they'll pay you that 100,000. And if anything happens to you, your wife will continue getting the same amount for the rest of her life. But if anything happens to both of you before the 10 years, then they'll work out what you are put in and what they paid you, and then they pay you by the beneficiary the difference. So this is also and also when I'm talking about realities about retirement, then we'll be looking at why that also is important. The third thing that I tell people is that please don't go into retirement with loans. It's very, very difficult to pay loans when you're in retirement. I saw it when I was a regulator. People were first, their houses are being sold because when he left employment, he thought that the consultancy would get money and be able to pay off his loan. It doesn't work. I am in consultancy myself and do some business for government, for other institutions. You get payments after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, today 6 months. Today I got one which was done in November. So if you are paying a mortgage, definitely the banks will realize you're in arrears and you don't be able to pay. And I saw that happen to a number of people and their matrimonial homes have been sold. So mine is to tell you before you retire, please just consolidate and try and clear all your loans before you go into retirement. And I did the same and it becomes much easier because it's not easy to pay these loans when you're in retirement. You might say business, but you can see COVID can come and things can change. So number one, post-retirement medical cover you should have. Number two, have some liquidity, and I'll talk about it again. Number three, I say, please make sure that you don't have a loan when you go to retirement. Number four is something that I always also encourage. Please start something of your choice, a business or something of your passion, just to supplement that income that you are getting. Because as I say, pension only give you 10%. It's not much. So you need to do something because again, you have a lot of time, something that will keep you going. If we have time, I'll show you a video at the end of the session. But if there's no time, then I'll share with you people this video. So it's very important that you start a business of your own. That's something that we have a passion for, something that you don't do with a lot of pressure because you don't need time, you don't have that time to do things which are put you on a lot of pressure. So that is something that I always say. And the fifth and the most important, I say, please be close to your family. It's very difficult when you're in retirement to start being very close to your family. You find that if you're not with them before, and that's the time you need them most, it becomes a big challenge to you, and which I'm going to give you some of the examples that I had. So one thing that I would like to say, those 5 things I've put there are quite critical, okay, in retirement. But you can add anything else. So post-retirement medical cover, you have liquidity, that's where pension comes in. Pay off all your loans, that's number 3. Number 4, start a business of your passion. Then number 5, have a family. Be close to your family. It's quite critical that you are close to your family. That is something that you must take cognizance of. And now I'll be able to talk about other retirement issues, which I think realities in retirement. There are quite a number of them. And this is quite something that you must also realize happens. I myself, I used to work more or less from 5 to 9 to 5 o'clock, and wake up at 5 o'clock, and you work until very late. So for almost 40 years at very top levels. But then immediately you retire, you realize you have a lot of time. It becomes a very big challenge even for your family. Like, but at that time, my wife also was working. So what will happen in the morning, she'll start asking me, my friend, what's your program for the day? Before, she would never used to ask what my program for the day was. Because she was getting even worried seeing these guys remaining here at home with their maid only 2 of us, and nothing much. So he has to get something to do, because consultancy, there's some days you are doing it, some days you're not doing it. So that's why it's very important to get something to do, because it becomes a big challenge about this. I was lecturing some lecturers in Nakuru, and I was coming back with a lady from there, also a professor in the university, was saying, my husband has become stressed. I asked her, what? What you're talking about seems to be true. This guy, before, he never used to call me. These days, he calls me 10 times a day. When I want to go to Chama, he's following me, wants me to take me to Chamas. So it's like it builds a lot of stress comes at that time. And that's why in RBA, we realize a lot of separation takes place after retirement, which is not very good, because somebody feels under pressure that you're always calling 10 times, which you never used to do. All of a sudden, women have a way that they socialize. Men don't have a way of socializing. And that I saw with the judges that I was talking to. Then when they separate, they never even met friends. So we find they go to the village, they don't fit in. So most of them don't even last long. So that's very, very critical, that that you manage your time by doing something. One other thing I found interesting was that I used to have a lot of phones coming in, and being a CEO, and many times almost 2, 3 phones. But immediately after this, you realize that very few people will call you, because they are calling the position. The people who matter now are your parents. I mean, basically your family. And that's why I'm saying the family comes in very handy. And you'll find at that time, the only people who call you is either your wife or your children. Because most people don't have time for you, or they don't see why you're calling them, because they might think that you're looking for something. That becomes a big challenge. So you find that if you're not close to your family, then you find even the phones will stop ringing and nobody will be calling you. The other thing I noticed in retirement, I used to have guards and security and all those things. And working for government is a very interesting thing. Immediately you stop working, all those things are withdrawn, and which is rightly done, because they never budgeted for you after retirement. So you'll come, you find that you're used to somebody there, they get opening, you get all of a sudden, now you have to open yourself, and many other things. So you go through a number of things that becomes quite a challenge. I used to have papers being brought to me all the time. I never bought papers for almost 40 years. Then all of a sudden I had to buy myself Nation and Standard. Then slowly, I realized this was becoming a challenge. Then I said, okay, let me use the internet and go and read, and then maybe just buy over the weekends. And it becomes something that is now, life has changed, so you have to adjust to those changes. And as I went through this training, as I was training most people, I realized once there are certain realities in marriage, and I told them, see, when you reach that age, the men are not the same men now and they used to be, or your wife is no longer the same woman that she used to be. And most people, at least you are doctors, but the most of people that I train, you find that the men still try to be strong and the way they used to be, and take Viagra, and they end up dying. But I always tell them maybe the best thing they should see a urologist, a few urologists, which work and help them in that state. The women also have these challenges of, they also, when they reach that age, urination and all those things. So there's a lot of things that change. So she'll not be as strong, and they expect her to have the same sexual drive like before. So you need both of you to manage that stress. And quite a number, that's why I say a lot of stress come in at that time. But if all of you have gone through some of these trainings, you realize that, okay, life has changed, and maybe we need to manage it differently. And what I find interesting is even maybe I should ask most of you, how many of you have a will? The group that I've been training, almost all, you find only one person has a will. When I trained the judges, I found only the current Chief Justice is the only one who had a will. And the rest had not put up a will. The very few had a will. So I don't know why people are reluctant to do a will. And I always advise, please just do a will. There's some wish, it helps in a way, and it also helps the family so that we avoid a lot of issues when you don't have a will. So try and do and make sure that you have a will, because it really helps you. And it will help when people are, even you, when your parents or people are left behind, to know how you plan to divide your things. It doesn't mean that if you don't have a will, you're going to die tomorrow. Then one thing that you should know, that your children are not your investment. Okay, but I say, please invest in your children. Don't invest for them, because when you invest for them, then they just you become the gatherer, they become the scatterers. And you've seen these cases in the university when I teach entrepreneurship and innovation management. When we're talking about legacy and exit, quite a number of people have a story to tell, and we read about the real cases that we've seen in Kenya here. We don't read the foreign cases. People, we find you've generated, you've gathered so much, but immediately you leave the scene, that money is spent and just scattered, and it's all finished within a very short time. I have cases whereby a lady, the husband was a policeman, he had a house in the Otiende estate, and he passed on, so at least the house was going to be revenue for the wife. The son pushed the mother very hard that she should sell the house and go to the village, and they got to help them now, and they'll start business and then help her when she's there. She sold, but at the end of the day, today, they're all back with her. All that money is squandered, is finished. Now they're back with her in the village. But if at least she had a pension, it would have been, that money would still be coming to her. But now the house which was there, which she relied on, also has gone. So it becomes a very big challenge for parents when he reaches some of these ages. So don't just invest in them, like maybe let them be professionals in their own line. They should be able to survive on their own without sitting there waiting. A friend of mine as a child of 10 years was asking, he wants to know his share of his wealth, because he owns a bigger house in Napai. So he asked the child, why are you 10 years? Why do you want to know about the share of my wealth? Well, he said, you see, I don't trust my brothers. So if you're not there, they may not divide. So that boy's head already, he knows that he's waiting for the father's wealth, which is very, very unfortunate. So you should not invest in them, but just invest in them and don't invest for them. So it's important that you think about some of these things that I mentioned, and maybe towards the end, if we have time, I'll show you a video. And I would like maybe now to take some questions, and then we share with most of you some of the experiences that we have. Chair, maybe I can stop there and listen
yes.
to the member.
Thank you. There's a question asked by a doctor here. He wanted to know, you wanted to elaborate on the government circular of how the deductions of public servants superannuation scheme are graduated from 2.5 upwards. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Thank you. Yeah, when we were starting the scheme, because we realized that it's going to hit their pay slip, which they were not used to. There was in the circular, the first year they were going to contribute 2.5, but the government was contributing 15% of your salary. And then second year, they're going to contribute 5%. So that this year they've started deducting 5%. And then the third year is supposed to be 7.5. Actually, the way the trust did is you're supposed to contribute 7.5, the government is supposed to contribute double that, which is 15%. But because they realized that in the first 3 years, most of the public servants might have challenges, they made it to go up graduate. They graduated it slowly. And today, and as I say, this is one of the largest schemes. In 1 year, we've accumulated 25 billion in treasury bills. And maybe for information that have made for you a profit of 3 billion, 2.9 billion is like 3 billion for this year. That's just ended because we just invested in government security. Central Bank agreed to open for us an account there because this scheme is large. So most of the money just comes straight from the exchequers to our account in Central Bank, and we invest straight in treasury bills. So the first 3 years, I've told them, I put a policy, we're not investing in any other investment, because we want to have preservation of cash and accumulation of capital. After that, like now we've made maybe 3 billion, next year we might make more. Maybe we can now start looking at some part of it and put in other investments, but not currently, because that there's no shares is not doing very well. Properties have issues because when you have property now, half the properties are empty. And although we are required by the LBR to make sure that we invest in all the investment vehicles, we shall do it gradually, not something. And again, we must make sure we have a capital. Even the banks where I sit as a bank director, most of our investment in government securities, they don't invest in, very few of them invest in shares by the way, and properties. The equity bank, first of all, doesn't invest in property. Even the building we are in the equity center, that one belongs to Britain. Doesn't belong. So the kind of investment, you look at liquidity must be available. You don't want a situation where people have retired. And then you're saying you're going to sell a building which cannot work. Think of the buildings in the city center which were owned by pension schemes. They cannot convert them into cash. And then the way the environment is, the rentals have come down. People want buildings which are high tech. So the old buildings now, they become universities. If they're not universities, they've been turned to small shops. Yet you have in your balance sheet that you have that kind of a property in the scheme. Next question.
Next question, maybe you can repeat the insurance companies that offer the post-retirement medical cover. There's an anonymous attendee who has asked that. Just repeat the names of those companies.
Yeah, the current is APA. There's yes. UAP. There's Jubilee. I'll repeat them again. And then there's Sanlam.
Okay, thank you. I think we will, as a circle, we will look at that and try to convert them to our TIBA for the benefit of our members. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So we have now, APA, UAP, Jubilee, Sanlam, and CIC. CIC told me they have also started. Yes, another question?
Yeah, comment on investing in too many plots in the middle of nowhere with difficulty disposing when liquidity becomes a challenge.
It's very interesting to talk about plots. I also invested in some plot next to the lake, and it was swallowed by water. Almost half of it is gone. So plots have big challenges, and if right now, if you invest in plot and you don't, if you sell it maybe, but when they're just sitting there, it doesn't help you. Like I said, this friend of mine who had a problem, he had plots, but he could not convert them into cash when he was sick. No.
Okay. Now the next question is: you mentioned. You mentioned the scheme that has an embedded medical cover for civil servants. Does the same apply for those who enroll voluntarily after 45? I don't know whether that scheme has an embedded medical cover, really, does it?
Currently, we have worked on a policy which is going to have to embed it, the medical cover in it. It's not yet finalized because government, you have policies and such. But the idea, I told them, we must make sure that we have a post-retirement medical cover embedded in this pension scheme, this new pension scheme. And so that when they retire, they can be like everybody else. Like me, I only have my card, and I don't pay every premium every year. So if it's embedded now, when they retire, it can be mixed in their life. It doesn't matter, at least even if you have a million shilling cover, even 500, when you go to hospital, you have a card. Because if you go with cash, you'll always be told when you're in ICU, you have no money, the family is being told the money is getting finished, add more. So it's always good to have something, a card which will help you. Thank you.
What happens to the earlier pension earnings for those who transferred to the new pension scheme?
Thank you. Yeah, currently the people who are in the old scheme, which is in Treasury, is being treated as closed scheme. Anybody about 45 from 2021 were now what they had accrued in the old scheme remains there as deferred amount. Such meaning that if today there is somebody, like we have quite a number who are maybe dismissed or retire, you'll be paid by the old scheme, and then we'll pay you in the new scheme. So the old scheme is closed, is still there, but old scheme is normally dependent on tax. So if they don't have funding from the exchequer, they might not pay you. But me, I can pay you because I have the cash.
Now, comment on the transfer of services in the civil service and if it affects pension.
No, what happens is you can always move with your services. So because if pension, you find that you even in private, you are free to move with your pay, to remain in the scheme where you are in, or to move with it.
Okay.
No, yes, now, you can always transfer your service.
Now, the pension rules change to allow someone to draw on a percentage of their savings for residential property. Would you advise someone to do this? Dennis Opapa.
Yeah, I saw what happened at the time that before we introduced this one, somebody retired and the loan that he had was a mortgage.
Yes.
And when he had the only mortgage to pay, you realize at that particular time, the rules do not allow somebody to use his pension to pay the mortgage. And it took so long to get this policy through the Treasury or through Parliament. And this person died, and this house was not paid for. But we were saying if the policy was through, he would have been able to access part of it and at least pay off this house. Because if you can get, in retirement, you need to have a residence. You know, very, very important to have, because you have some, and you do make sure it's loan-free, whereby you're not paying. So if you can access to buy a mortgage, I'll advise it's please do. You need to build to have your own house.
Now, kindly comment on trust funds, and are they only for the wealthy? Like somebody's asking about trust funds. Yo Kamau. Trust funds, are they only for the wealthy?
Trust fund. No, trust, you see, you can decide to have a trust fund, but you see what the trust funds that we have are, they're not, some of them are not regulated. And if they're not regulated, you can have a very big challenge. Because if people have lost money in the side loans and the rest, because they're expecting to put money at 18%, and then all of a sudden the thing collapses, and then you lose your funds.
Okay.
So you have to be very careful.
Now, Dr. Vitalis Ogola would like to ask a question. So,
yes.
As someone who has literally lived in the world of pension, it's moving so fast. What would you say is a good age for one to retire, from Dr. Vitalis Ogola?
I always say at 50, normally it's voluntary. And after 50, you can try at 50. That's the law. Anybody else reach 50 is voluntary, can retire. Okay, but if you can work up to 60, well and good. But after 50, you can start consolidating.
Now, you've said it's good to start a business, get a job post-retirement that's not stressful to keep oneself busy. However, I see the job you have as a lecturer can be busy, e.g. teaching, setting, and marking exams. Kindly comment. Now, he's asking you to comment on your job.
Thank you. I would say I'm lecturing part-time, and I do it at my time because I have only told them I can only lecture on Monday. I lecture people doing masters and PhD. PhD is not different. It's people come there, but masters is, even if it's a class, maybe 30 something, but I only do one class a week. So you don't do so much that you have time to do other things. I don't go for full time.
Okay. How will the old closed scheme benefits be calculated for those who in need for a short period before being transferred to the new contributory scheme? How will the benefits be calculated?
There's an actuary who was appointed to work out the accrued benefits for all the civil servants who are in the old scheme. And I think they use the rates which are there for the old scheme. I don't have them with me, but because that's a government, it's normally the Treasury Department of Pension. So they have the rates which applies across, but they've already worked out an accrued benefit for each person, depending on their salary and the service, that the time they've been in service.
Okay, what's your take about building houses up country, yet most of our lives we live in towns? Now, this is the doctors who are coming up. Our children may not have interest in staying up there.
By the way, personally, I've built in the village, and I think especially when you stay in Nairobi for some time, you realize that, in fact, before long ago, I used to imagine that you would stay most of your life in town. But as time goes by, the young people are the ones who are staying in town, and they wonder what you are doing in town. And you're more peaceful if you have something at home. And with the counties having come up, if you go down all the counties, there's so much to the place have changed. It's not the old homes that we used to have with no power, no water. But these days you can build a house, and I encourage people to build houses in the village. So that when you're tired, sometimes I get out saying in Nairobi, I go there and spend some time there. Because you have all the time, because hang around staying in the town. It becomes also a challenge if you're just sitting around in town and you're retired.
Okay, is the superannuation scheme only for civil servants or applies to devolved county employees as well?
No, it's only for civil servants. It's, the counties have not joined us. Counties have their own schemes and the CPF and the LAP fund. So I only cover for people in the national government.
Okay. So please clarify on the available pension schemes and how to join. From Dr. Robinson Duarte.
The pension schemes which are available, institutions like the medical, so your scheme, the SACCO can have a pension scheme for all the members. Yes.
We have partnered with Britam. We have partnered with Britam, and some members are advised to join through that, but that's privately.
So that one they can join easily, which is when when it's already established like yours, then you have benefits that you'll get. So they can join your scheme.
Okay. Kindly comment on the policies which you implemented at RBA that do not work for retirees. You alluded to this earlier.
You realize something to do with the pension rates are very low. Because if you think of if contribution rates are not they're not very high. One thing that also I don't like was what we call the table that they use, for actuarial table that they use for calculating the pension. You realize it's a very old annuity table, and I think it's something which needs to be looked into, that so that the people can get slightly higher amounts. Another thing that I've also been advocating for about since I left is that the service charge that pension scheme are charged by the fund manager. The fund manager, you have the custodian, you have the auditor, and the rest. Those rates are very high. And I think that's why you find that there's a lot of rush by service providers, because the members need to benefit, not the service providers. Currently, you find the service providers really gets some big chunk, because when the scheme grows, they say into billions. Why should they still get the same rate? Maybe the rate should be, once the scheme grows beyond a billion, 5 billion, the figure should be capped or it should be reduced. So those are some of the policies that I would like to see changed.
Okay. So when the medical scheme for the retired finally becomes operational, will the already retired officers be able to enroll in it?
Which one?
Remember, David Odeng is asking about the medical scheme for the retired. I think this is what you are talking about.
Yes. We had a meeting with an association of retired civil servants, and they were really feeling that they should also be allowed to join that scheme. It's something when we are developing that policy, that's one of the areas we are looking at, because they realize most civil servants who have retired are really suffering out there. So they should be able to be allowed to join. And I think we are thinking of putting it in that policy, something we're discussing with that association.
Now, there's a doctor here who works for the county. It's anonymous. I wanted to know, the county started deducting pensions last year. Some of us were put in LAP fund, while others in LAP trust. Is there a difference between the two, and which is better? So comment on LAP trust and LAP fund.
Yeah, LAP fund is a provident fund. And
yes, provident fund.
LAP trust is a pension scheme, which is CPF.
Okay.
They were both created under different act. One was created under the legal notice, that is the LAP fund, and then the other one was created as a pension scheme, the LAP fund, CPF. So they are basically, they serve the same people, and that's sometimes you have a lot of competition among them, but they are basically regulated by Retirement Benefits Authority. So they are both pension schemes, but for county government. There is a proposal.
Yeah, I think this one is the next question just on that.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. Okay. The next question is still on LAP fund. I think you have commented on that. Now, Martin Kulanila wants to know, if one resigns from government before attaining retirement age, what happens to the pension earnings already accrued? And how soon do superannuation schemes start paying dues on retirement?
If you're a member of the superannuation scheme, superannuation started last year. Anybody who leaves now, he'll be paid his contribution, and the member's contribution is in contribution and the employer's contribution. That will be paid immediately. The new LPA rules require that after 90 days you should be paid, but only on the new scheme. You know, the old scheme, the employees were not contributing. They were being paid from the exchequer. So the old scheme was just a pay as you go, and it was the government which was funding it. So this other scheme is funded.
And the other one, the old one became unwieldy and the government could not afford. Okay. Now, can someone who is on IPP, private employment, also contribute to post-retirement medical cover?
Yes, you can always contribute to it. You can buy a cover. You can always buy, if you're in private employment, you just go to those firms and they can you can buy a post-retirement medical cover. That's possible.
Okay, so our private practitioners in the doctors group, I think that question is answered for them.
Yeah, they can go
Now,
for
comment
it.
on, yes. Comment on the amount of money one can access as pension once retired.
Normally, what you can access
question
is 10% of what you have accrued. If you have accrued like let's say 5 million, you'll get 50,000 a month, which is very small if it's a pension. 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, minus taxes about 9 point something.
Okay. The challenge with health insurance schemes is difficulty getting authorization for treatment, procedures, admissions, etc. Very frustrating for patients at the time of need. Sometimes they authorize and retract once treatment has started. Is it not better to keep the money in a financial tool that liquidity can be accessed on short notice, e.g. money market fund? This anonymous member was asked that.
Yeah, that is one thing that somebody will always say, that maybe you put your money in some lab trust, some trust fund, and then withdraw it. And that's why one of the places where I find it's also very, very risky. This issue about medical cover, insurance not paying is real. It's something that I've also experienced, because we find that you go and they always tell you that they're going for authorization. And that's why I'm saying that the insurance market needs disruption. It's one market that needs disruption to get some people. Okay, right now, Equity Bank is coming up with a new insurance company. And I told them, by the way, take advantage and disrupt this market, because pension industry penetration is only 2%. But if somebody can, and there's medical covers worldwide, like Cigna, which covers everything. There are no exceptions. They even no time limit to wait for something, because they're able to get the numbers. And if you have the volumes of 10, 15 million people, you can easily cover most of the things. So it's one area that I've also been talking with the insurance company that they need to look into, because people are getting frustrated when they go to hospital and this is not, you are told that it's not covered. That's
yes, we're actually in the process of getting international medical cover for the SACCO, for SACCO members. I think that is an issue that we will deal with very soon. Now, the differentiation between provident fund and pension scheme, difference.
The difference is the pension fund, the provident fund is where you contributed, you'll be paid the full lump sum, one-off.
Yes.
And that's what you've contributed and the accrued income. While a pension scheme where you are going to be paid now on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Yes, it's what we call an IME or a drawdown.
Okay. Now I think we are about to drawing to the end. It's about already 8. Maybe you can answer 2 more. Which pension providers give the best returns? And is this info available readily? If yes, where from? Somebody wants to know if you can comment on the pension providers and their returns.
When it comes to returns, you have to be very careful, because the returns can be very high, but you find that the investments that have invested in becomes a challenge. So the most important thing that you look at a pension scheme, which is, you can look at it's there, and you can look at its sustainability, and the return doesn't have to be high, but you look at how it's being managed. Then because if you focus only on the return, then you can have a challenge. They might tell you they're making money, but sometimes that money is mostly just accrued, but no free cash. So I can't tell you this is the best. Don't use the governance is critical. Don't use a return as a basis of going to a pension scheme. And if you look at those very schemes, the returns are very low.
Okay. Now, the last question before I invite the chair and the CEO and the chair to talk, maybe those of us who quit government at age 45 before superannuation, are we eligible for pension when we hit 50?
Yeah, you'll be eligible to the old pension scheme, because that closed scheme, you're still a member. So you're a deferred member, what we call deferred member. Yes.
Okay, somebody is asking on behalf of parents. I think this should be the last question. What is the legal recourse available to the parents who are still struggling to access their retirement benefits? Somebody is talking about retired teacher who 3 years post-retirement and have not gotten their retirement, the benefits. What is the legal recourse for them?
The old scheme has challenges. And I was saying it's a closed scheme, but they're not funded. So they are depending on taxes. So they collect tax at the beginning of the year from all of you and use it to pay. So we find that the government took so long to have a contributory scheme. So people in the old scheme will still face these challenges for a very long time, because they are being paid from the exchequer. And Exchequer will only pay you when they collect the tax. So they collect in the course of the year and they pay. So that has not really been going on well for most retirees. It's a bit unfair and it's not good. That's why this new scheme, and that's why I decided that I'll look up to accumulation and cash preservation. We have cash. We're not putting this money in some building which somebody will come and say that the proper money is in building. But the old scheme doesn't have cash at all.
Okay.
They're dependent on what comes.
Thank you, Dr. Odundo, for this wonderful presentation. Sorry, I took you very fast in the interest of trying to get all questions answered.
I'll make this.
And you have been up to the task. And I believe you will send us all the slides which we'll be able to provide to our members because we have their contacts in our repository. Now I hand over to the CEO who will then invite the chairman to give closing remarks.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Ido, just before the CEO comes in, before we let Dr. Odundo, I would like really to address one thing that I think is the elephant in the room when it comes to doctors and pensions. And the reason is that this is Dr. Kileba speaking. Dr. Odundo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, be a bit louder.
Okay, I'll try to be a bit louder. So I'm mentioning that one elephant in the room when it comes to doctors and their pensions is that those who work in the government is that our pay structure is such that our basic pay is around 30% of what our gross pay is. And unfortunately, pensions, they use the basic pay to calculate our pensions. So so whereas you can contribute a big percentage, and maybe you mentioned at the end it will be about 22%, it is still a very small portion of what really is our gross pay. So what happens is that when you retire and the pensions is now being paid out from the basic salary, then it becomes a drastic drop in income. And those in private sector, so I mentioned those in government sector, where allowances are maybe make 70%. And those in private sector, the issue is that whereas you can be paid with the pension can be calculated based on your on a basic salary. On the other hand, there is also extra work that people do during part-time, which also increases income, and this does not go to pension. So really, my question and the elephant in the room is that there is a drastic drop in income for doctors when we retire. So what do we advise we do? Do we take private pensions additionally, or how do we manage this situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's true. Because there's this pensionable pay. If the government bases this in a basic, you find that the amount definitely will be very low. What private sector do, they pay consolidated fee or consolidated salary. So they consolidate everything and they pay as a consolidated salary. And then you find that one is what they use as a pensionable salary. But government, they've been using the basic salary as a basis of pensionable pay. And definitely your parents find that your pension is low. And I always advise it's good to have voluntary contribution, additional contribution, especially now that we have a scheme where people are contributing. This can also be an additional contribution. You can always add in additional contribution to what you're currently getting. The idea is, as I said, what you accrue, only 10% will be your income. So it's very important for doctors to think very critically about how they save for retirement, because what they have currently is very, very low. So it's good you can go and have an IPP, you do your private contribution so that you can have some supplementary funds apart from what you shall be getting from the pension department. Thank you.
Thank you. Just CEO, Mr. Mutua.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Rido, for moderation, and thanks a lot to our key speaker, Dr. Edward Odundo, for such an insightful message. We shall definitely be getting back to you for more and more series of this. Mine is to also thank the participants who joined, and before I welcome the chair to move the vote of thanks, I would like to remind our members that we own an insurance agency, TIBA Insurance Agencies, and currently they are assisting members to hook up to pension schemes of their choice privately. We have taken members to Jubilee, we have taken members to Britam, to CIC. So what you need to do is to get in touch with our insurance agency through tiba@kemesacco.com. Choose the pension scheme of your choice, and we shall be able to link you up there. We have all the financial services within Kemesacco Group under one roof. So thanks a lot again, and get in touch with us. At this point, I would like to invite our board chairman, Dr. Kennedy Jerry Koech, to move a vote of thanks to the participants. Thank you. You know that the chair could have dropped out. Maybe the treasurer, Dr. George Gota Kuno.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. This is a subject that is very close to our hearts. And I must thank, first of all, Dr. Odundo for sparing his time to come and have this discussion with us. Secondly, just to ask our members that remember, the best day to start thinking about retirement is the day you get your first pay. Don't wait until when you are now staring at it and you've already received that letter that your term is coming to an end for you to start thinking of retirement. The best day to start thinking is the day you pick your first pay, so that it becomes part and parcel of the things that you budget for. Thanks everyone who found time to join. Thank you, CEO, for making it possible for us to log into this. I'm sure our members have heard that TIBA Insurance Agencies is placing and arranging all forms of insurance, including pension. I must admit I took my pensions through TIBA. They placed me in Jubilee and I'm happy. Thank you. I can see Dr. Koech has rejoined. Maybe he can take over his role and finish the meeting. Dr. Koech.
Thank you very much, Treasurer, for those closing remarks. I was a bit held up, but I've just joined. And I would just like to thank the members for joining into this webinar. And I believe that it's been quite educative. I believe that you learned quite a lot. This issue of pensions is extremely important, because we all know that at the end of the day, we must retire from our regular occupations. So we really must prepare well for it, just as Dr. Gott has said, that we start planning for retirement and pensions as soon as we start getting our first pay. So always a good idea to put something aside for the time when we are unable to work. So members, I would like to thank you all, and I look forward again to having another education session with you in the near future. So thank you very much.